Okay, well, as promised, I was asked to do sort of a Twitter 101 session. It will not take an hour. I have about 25 slides, which are mostly illustrations of different features of Twitter. And I'm happy to take questions. I can also, at the end, take more. I've been saving my phone battery so I can show you some things on my Twitter account on my phone. So, with no further ado, Twitter is based on, it's a real-time information network, and it's based on the idea that the open exchange of information can have a positive effect. And we see this over and over again with Twitter, and perhaps you do, those of you who use it already. Oops. So I'm going to talk first about just the Twitter platform. Since its start in March 2006, it's grown quite rapidly, and these are global numbers. 400 million unique visitors a month, 140 million active users, 400 million tweets per day. That's a lot of tweets going through the pipeline. That's a big stream. And we continue to grow, promote those up. As I mentioned earlier, 70% of Twitter use is outside the US, and of course continues to grow in all kinds of places. And we keep adding languages. We have volunteer translators as well as in-house, and we are now up to 30 languages, and we're continuing to add more. There's a sampling, that's not all of them, but just to show you the variety of languages. And the conversations on Twitter are growing too. One of our discoveries recently is to get to 1 billion tweets. The first billion took 3 years, 2 months, and a day to aggregate. Now we've had 1 billion tweets. Now we see 1 billion tweets every 3 days. So it kind of matches the arrow going up and to the right in terms of the volume of what people are saying and sharing on Twitter. Mobile is an incredibly important part of the Twitter experience, the Twitter platform. 70% of people access Twitter on a mobile device. It's not exclusively mobile, but that's a common occurrence. And mobile growth, month over month, is 40% increase. So increasingly, people are accessing, sharing, passing along photos, commenting, breaking news, sharing news, reporting from the ground on their smartphone. There's some of the features of Twitter. Sorry about this little cartoon figure. I made up a person, an account, Margie DE, Margie Germany. And I just want to show you a little bit how Twitter works if you're not familiar with it. So let's say Margie is interested and follows several accounts that she's keen on. They could be news, they could be sports, they could be individual people, politicians, pop stars, celebrities. These are people she's reading in her Twitter stream because she's chosen to follow these accounts that are all on Twitter. Now, other people are following these accounts, and so you start to see, and by the way, the accounts, whether it's MTV Germany or Sport Build or any of the others, they're also following other accounts. So you start to see this two-way effect that is asymmetrical. You're not required to follow or be followed. I don't need Lady Gaga to follow me. I could just follow Lady Gaga, right? The same is true for news outlets and celebrities and sports figures and so on. And so you start to see this effect of these who's followed, who's following, that multiply in great numbers very quickly. So of course, you know, Margie also has followers, right, who say, oh, I like what she tweets about in relation to, you know, the soccer team, the women's soccer team. I like what she tweets about. I'm going to follow her. So you begin to see then this continues to happen, and it goes on into infinity, really. in terms of who you follow, who follows you. You add, subtract, and you kind of keep shaping this big stream, this growing stream that you have of information and news and jokes and everything else that you're getting. It's a little slow. So here's what a stream looks like for those of you who haven't seen it. If you check on Twitter, it could be on the web client, on a laptop or desktop machine, but also on your mobile device, you will see, here's the latest, here's the news that people are tweeting out. And it does begin to feel like a stream because you can scroll down and you can see more, and you can stop at one. I think this slide is going to show one tweet in particular, the anatomy of a tweet. We say there's a universe inside of your tweet. So here's one, a report from CNN, and you see all the elements here. You see that it's from a CNN Twitter account. You see what their news is. They're linking to their news, and they have a hashtag. Now, I'll show you a little bit how this breaks out. So the retweeted by at the bottom shows you, oh, these are other people that have seen this, and they've also passed it along. It gives it an air of authority and maybe a variety of sources that is also of interest to you. The ons.cnn.com is actually this video which will play. You can watch the clip of it in the tweet as you're scrolling through. Oops, the circle's off there. Hashtag UNGA, UN General Assembly, that arrow is pointing to, if you're looking for what are other people saying about, commenting on, observing about hashtag UNGA, you can click on that link, click on that hashtag, and you'll see a whole variety of sources, maybe none of which you follow, that are also talking about this hashtag, this conversation about UN General Assembly. What are they saying? What's going on with that? You may say, oh, you know what? I like this news. I like this tweet. I need to come back to it. I'm going to mark it a favorite. So you give it a little star. You highlight the star, and then in your stream, this becomes a favorite. So your favorites are viewable publicly, if that's how you've set up your account. But you can also then go back to it and say, I really liked that speech. I really wanted to watch that again. I'll watch that later. So you begin to have your string of favorites. Mine is full of things I'll need to go back to later. And here, the retweet is something that essentially people using Twitter have come up with on their own over time. I mean, early on, this was a feature that hadn't been designed, but which was picked up by people using Twitter, which is to say, I just want to share this information with the people who follow me. I want them to know about the speech at the UN by Ban Ki-moon. So I'm just going to retweet this as is. I'm not making a comment, I'm just passing it along. And it will show up as a retweet that you have retweeted it, meaning you're signaling, hey, I care about this, and you might too. Very easy to do. The buttons are sticking. You can also, from within the tweet, reply. The link under there, if you can't see, says reply. And it pulls up a blank, formatted tweet. You can write to CNN Live, because that's who originated this one, and say, hey, the video's not working, or hey, how about a longer clip next time? Or, let's see more like this. Whatever you want to say, you send that tweet directly back to CNN Live. Again, you don't even have to be following them. You can reach them that way. You can suggest, you can criticize, you can say, I like this, thank you, whatever you want. Very easy to do within the reply function on a tweet. So something we call the canvas is sort of the larger set of elements. You recall I said something about the heart of every conversation is a tweet, the universe is in a tweet. So here's an actual exchange that went on between an athlete, a basketball player in this case, and President Obama. And he tweeted to him, hey, when are we going to play a game of basketball at the White House, your home court? he got a reply. Actually, I have to look up here to read this. Another player jumps in to say, "I'd love to see that if I could, Obama and Bubba on the court." And then he asks again, you know, what are we doing? Here's someone else, Emily Price, saying, "Oh, I like this tweet." So all of these things, the reply, the retweet, the favorite, are all within the context of this exchange of this one piece of information that's kind of funny and kind of quirky. So as I mentioned, tweets appear in your timeline like this. Here's just another illustration of how they look, how you'll see them as you go through. And one important thing is, as I mentioned, they go through all screens. We have mobile apps for iPhone, Android, BlackBerry. We have an API. SMS only works on feature phones, and of course, Twitter.com on the web. And that you see it uniformly in all of these platforms. The @ symbol in front of a name with no space in front of it is the name that you have. And you'll see on Twitter, unlike some other platforms, does not have to be your real name. Plenty of people do have their real names. Some, for various reasons, some have a stage name. Some, just have a sense of humor. There's a whole world of quirky names and funny names as well as real names. But this is the way that you're known. And as you see here, here's some brands, Adidas, Louis Vuitton. They also have their names are there, the twitter.com/ their name. It's your identity on Twitter. And so that's why you often see now on a business card or in some other way, people will have the @ sign in their name. That's how you can be found. People are now, we're seeing this phenomenon more and more. People in the sports world, it's quite popular, but also TV, movies, some other places where it's just an easy, short way to identify rather than spelling out a website or something else, just to see the name. The top right is the Boston basketball team. The sneakers, I guess, are personalized, is what I'm assuming by that. But people have just easy ways, easy signage that you will see on billboards, you'll see in major marketing campaigns now. It's also, has developed this incredible reputation now for being a second screen for live events. And whether the live event is sort of breaking news at Tahrir Square or the Oscars, the Olympics are coming up, you'll see a lot of Twitter activity there. It's what people are following along, watching observations, comments, jokes, collective groans about a lost pass, any number of things. It's almost as if you could watch it just on Twitter if you didn't have a TV handy. So one interesting fact, just to show how this has become adopted so widely, strangely enough, just 4 years ago, we saw a high. This was the all-time high at that point for a sporting event, 27 tweets per second. We thought that was big. Well, it turned out to be not so big because just 3 years later, it was 4,000 tweets per second. This year, the Super Bowl, it was 12,000 plus tweets per second of people reacting to, responding, cheering for their team, booing the other guys, whatever it was. It was that fast coming in. And that's that real-time element that really you can't get anywhere else but Twitter. Sorry, the buttons are sticking. Hashtags, as I mentioned, are a way to have a conversation. I'm sure you've seen hashtag DLDwomen here. There are probably some other hashtags about various conference sessions going on. They can be quite spontaneous. There's another phenomenon, kind of the joke hashtag, that people use a hashtag to kind of express their feelings. But even then, or play a game, and they can be quite funny. So you'll see, I just saw I was just looking at Twitter trends. Hashtag Hump Day means Wednesday. So Wednesday is the middle of the week. Like, I got to get through today, and then I'm coasting to the weekend, right? So that's just a popular one all the time, it seems. But you can make a hashtag, especially around live events. They're quite useful then to see everybody's comments coming through. They make for sort of a campfire that people can gather around to see what's the conversation about. I mentioned the real-time information network, and I think I have a DLD example. Yeah, I couldn't do this today because I had to have my slides in, but before the conference started, I just captured by searching for hashtag DLDwomen. Here's a number of people saying, I'm looking forward to coming, I'm heading there myself, here's my flight, I'll see you there. So you begin to see this sort of momentum that people have about, this is what everybody's talking about. This is where the stream is, this is where the people are. And if you multiply, this event by hundreds of thousands that are going on simultaneously, you see this sense of movement and, really human expression going on in real time. So if you search now for DLDwomen, you'll see lots of comments and reports on the sessions. Probably even this one. So here's a small example of how a real-time information works. Last summer, late summer, there was actually an earthquake on the east coast of the US, and these charts are the volume of tweets as this experience was happening up the eastern seaboard of the US. Actually, it starts, I think, from Virginia and then goes down because it moved up. So you see people saying, hey, do you feel that? I just heard it was, 4.6. And someone else saying it broke something in my house. And someone else saying, is everybody safe? And we saw this phenomenon, obviously, on a much bigger scale with a few of the huge disastrous earthquakes. But you begin to see the idea here of again, the volume of people sharing news and information and how quickly it travels. I think here's a build. So, yeah, that's just a little animation of 30 seconds of the tweets. That is how quickly they spread from that region in real time. So that is an early warning system, if I've ever seen one. That is one example of how that works. I may have one from Japan, I'm not sure. Let's see. Well, okay, this is going to build, I think. These are some other examples, some of which you're probably familiar with. Earthquakes, floods, protests, civic demonstrations, riots, and this is another one, I think, from Japan. So in all of these cases, Twitter was the information source for all of those things, especially when the phone service may be down, there may be no broadcasting available. This is how people get information out. Here's another kind of example entirely. This is a woman who was on a plane, just a commercial flight, and she happened to look out the window and saw the shuttle, the space shuttle, going up into the clouds from the plane that she was flying. So she tweeted this, sent that picture. I think this will build. That tweet that got picked up by all these news sources saying, they built their story around the fact that she had seen this and tweeted about it. Now, to be honest, I don't know that she tweeted in the air, but in any case, but she may have. But in any case, that's again how fast news and information can move, based on the use of Twitter. Another phenomenon that has developed and is quite popular is live tweeting. Last week I actually did a tweet chat, a Twitter chat, with people sending in questions, and I responded in real time for an hour. It was rescheduled. In this case, these are two examples. The G20, when it was in France, or a cyber conference in London, where someone is reporting on what's happening at the conference via Twitter, so that you can follow that stream. I think someone here is doing a wonderful job for DLDwomen the same way, covering the sessions. And it's as good as being there almost. Another example is the ability to answer questions on Twitter. I believe the man on the right, some of you will know, is the press secretary to Chancellor Merkel. And as I understand it, there have been other Q&A sessions, and I think this was one with the Peter Altmaier is maybe the environmental, is that right? Secretary. So they were having a bit of a joke because I think this was the last in a series of questions. But it's, you know, someone took the picture of them. The hashtag is about what the conversation is about. And so you see it in real time. Here's another one. I think one of the press people or the photographers taking the picture and sending it out right away on Twitter with a brief caption just to show this is a scene you wouldn't see another way, right? Somebody's right there as they're talking, you know, or as William Hague is starting his discussions at the conference. We're now used to seeing this, but it's thanks to Twitter that we're really used to seeing, you know, inside, behind the scenes as it happens. No more filter of waiting for the broadcast on TV or waiting for tomorrow's newspaper. So I've cited some of the ways that people use Twitter, and there's many more that could be on this slide. Governments use it for constituent services, live events I've talked about, sharing pictures, emergency information. In addition to these, there's also sort of good humor and fun. When two comedians are bantering back and forth on Twitter, that can be quite delightful. So we could list more reasons, but at the center of all of it is to be yourself and to be as, you know, clever or creative or interesting as the situation allows for. And that's what's the fun of Twitter. That's the sort of human part of Twitter that makes it so distinctive. There's no set way. There's no, you must do this and not that. People are exploring and developing new ways to communicate every day using Twitter, which is one of the things I love about it. So that's it for the picture portion of the program. I'm happy to take questions or be available if you want to ask individual questions after. Yeah? The hashtag. So the whole idea of a hashtag is if you put that immediately, no space, before anything, it could be hashtag DLDwomen, could be hashtag Munich, could be hashtag BBC, whatever, it could be for a live event, hashtag Olympics. You'll see, if you search on Twitter for that phrase with that hashtag as the symbol directly in front of the word, you will then see a stream of people using that same phrase as a matter of commenting or conversing about that subject. So what you're going to see there, I can't predict. It's going to be a grab bag of things. But if you look at, like the example I had from DLDwomen before the conference started, that was people hashtag DLDwomen saying, can't wait to get there, looking forward to this talk, what's the weather like? That's all, it's unified, it's organized by the fact that they all use that hashtag. So you see, oh, I didn't know so-and-so was going to be there. Oh, I'm coming on that same flight. Oh, I didn't know about that talk, I'm going to go look at the program. That's, you discover through that conversational gambit, if you will, that's what people are talking about.
And that ends up being useful because if you hashtag something and then somebody else is looking down the list and they really like your tweet and they wouldn't have found it unless...
That's right.
Then they start following you and then you build your followers?
Well, they may, or you may not follow all those people, but you just want to know what's going on right now for this, if it was a political debate, and let's say in the US this is happening more and more, I think in some other places too, a TV network will broadcast a political debate. They'll say the hashtag for this evening is, you know, hashtag Fox News Tonight or whatever. If you follow that, if you search for that, you'll see everybody commenting on what they're seeing on the debate. I don't have to follow all those people. I just want to know right now, oh, this is their take. They don't like what they're hearing. They all seem to be, you know, pro-Romney, whatever it is. You'll see that too. So you know, it doesn't have to have anything to do with following.
Yeah, I'm just wondering strategically how to do it, because I live in LA and everyone I know is actors and TV hosts and comedians, and they're all trying to build their brand. So I'm trying to understand how to use Twitter more, for lack of a better word, more aggressively.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the beautiful thing about Twitter is you try things, you see what other people are doing. So it's not like you have to have a hashtag. You do have to have a username, so that's important. Some people are very good about always responding. If somebody writes to them and says, I really like your presentation, hey, thank you, how are you today? You know, they're get into this conversational rhythm. Other times, people don't, or a brand might not, or a TV studio might not. But they mix it up. It's like there's not a one formula for doing it. If you look at some celebrities, they're not really linking to much sometimes, right? They're just saying, hey, what's everybody doing today? Good night, Twitter, see you tomorrow. You know, it's not, you know, each piece of it maybe isn't that substantive, but you begin to get a sense cumulatively of what they're like. Hashtags have a value, as I say, for a live conversation sometimes. They might have a value for a joke. I've seen lately these funny examples of hashtag games that people will play, like movie titles with drinks, right? Or something like that. One with a hashtag.
One that I saw was Less Ambitious Books. Yeah. And people just joined in and started making up the less ambitious titles of all these famous books. And
exactly.
I mean, it trended and then it didn't, you know.
Yeah. It just is this funny, evanescent thing. Yeah.
I have a question and a suggestion. And my question is, if you use a hashtag but you have a protected account, does it appear on the live feed? And my suggestion is that maybe you would like to talk about the trending topics. Thank you.
So if you have a protected account, I don't believe anything is going to show, except to the people you might have invited to follow your protected account, but not publicly. That's one thing in this Twitter settings. You can set to be, you know, have everything viewed publicly, or no, it's private, it's locked. You need permission to join, or nobody can see this. That's in the settings on Twitter. You will see it, whichever platform you're using. So nobody would see if you're in a protected account, if you have one. Only those you've allowed in would see. And your other question, sorry, about trending topics. So you'll see on whether you use it on a smartphone or on the website, trending topics are those that are, I believe it's algorithmic, but it's those topics that are rising quickly. They wouldn't be typically weather or weekend so much as they would be something distinctive that's news-based, usually is the case. If you want to play with this, it's quite interesting. You can, on twitter.com, I believe, see global trending, or you can choose a region, country, city, and see just for that city. So just for fun, I'm often looking at what's in San Francisco, what's in New York, you know, what's in London or something. And they're mostly different, right? Because people are talking about different things in these different places. And you could click on any one of those and see, well, what is that? They're not all obvious phrases that you would necessarily know what the reference is. So you can click and see what is that thing that people are talking about using that hashtag. So that's the idea behind trends.
I have a a little bit of different question because
Oh, sorry, if the lights are a little bright.
Because I understand that you've been rather new to Twitter as a company employee. I remember when I first heard about Twitter several years ago, I was very confused because I thought, why on earth would someone share on the internet, send an SMS back then, you know, a message to the internet saying, I do this right now, or I am here right now. And obviously it changed a lot because we're now from 23 tweets per second to 14,000. Back then you were not an employee of Twitter. I don't know, could you maybe tell from your personal experience what made it so successful, when it changed? I mean, I thought always people are rather private. Nowadays, I don't know what people's relation to privacy, intimacy, and so on is anymore, because it seems that it's not that there's not this limit anymore. It's really blurred. So when did it take off, and why maybe did it change?
I think, well, a couple things. You're absolutely right. In the beginning, I mean, I was a skeptic. I knew the guys who founded it, and I said, are they kidding? This was 2006, right? And I thought, I don't get this. But the beauty of Twitter is it relies on the network effect. So in the beginning, it was just sort of an inner circle of people who were sharing, you know, literally what they had for breakfast and where they were going after work. But then two things happened, I think. One is the first early adopters were techie people, because they always like to try things early. And so immediately, it wasn't just San Francisco, it wasn't just Twitter employees, it was a bigger circle of people, not geographically in one place, who were just fooling around with it and trying different things. On their heels very early, again, I think by 2007, the next group of people that really adopted it in big numbers were journalists, because they, again, were curious. This idea of something being in real time, you know, maybe it was tech journalists first and then other kinds of journalists, but basically people began to see, oh, this is a way that I can see, oh, so-and-so is going to talk at that conference tomorrow, or, oh, he's interested in this, I didn't know he was interested in that, well, I want to talk to him about that, or whatever it was. So, and then following on from individual journalists, media properties got into it, I think, fairly early. So then you're starting to see, oh, this is where we can share the news as soon as we're breaking it. So we're not having to wait for the nightly broadcast or tomorrow's paper or next week's magazine. We put it out here. We're going to have the whole story, you know, later. People can read more later, but this is like a layer of real-time news on top of what we're already doing. So I think from there, the network effect kind of blew up, and I think I finally signed on in 2008, and then by the beginning of 2009, I was like, I really see that, you know, I'm finding a lot of fascinating stuff here. And I got more and more into it, and I watched the company grow. And I'm a news junkie, I'm just passionate about real-time news and information. But beyond that, I mean, I follow people who are designers and architects and photographers. There's so many interesting, you know, avenues to go down, so that I just have sort of a rich feed of all kinds of information. And that's what I like. Other people have different accounts or keep things to a work focus or whatever it is. Again, that's the beauty of it, is that it's up to you to figure out how you want to use it. But for me, it was that early recognition of there's real-time news happening here, and I'm learning it first on Twitter. And my second revelation was this business of the second screen, where I'm suddenly seeing on my Twitter stream news before it's announced on TV, or something like that. And I thought, this is, you know, I'm watching the news on Twitter. And that was a real breakthrough for me. And then you, I think I'll sit down.
Karen, I've understood much better now the functions of Twitter, but I'm wondering, what is the business model of Twitter? What makes the company paying your salary?
Well, there's a little thing called advertising, and people will say to me, I don't see any ads on Twitter. In fact, you do, but they're very contextual, they're very subtle. I have to say, it reminds me of my early years at Google, where people said, what ads? I don't see any ads. And that's again because they were contextual ads that made sense within the context of what you're seeing. If you look on Twitter, you will see promoted tweets, promoted trends, and promoted topics. These all are very subtly marked. But the real value of them is that they're not like a fixed display ad that everybody sees the same thing at the same time. You know, first of all, it depends on what you're interested in and what you're following. But we encourage advertisers to make as much engaging information as they can in that short space, so that, for example, it might be if you retweet this from advertiser X, you know, you'll save $10 on your next purchase at so-and-so. Or, hey, this afternoon we have a special. A lot of small businesses do this, actually. We have, if you come by for a free coffee, or if you follow us, you'll get a discount on your next latte, or something like that. But big businesses and small are finding a lot of engagement and a lot of interest on people's parts, much more than just ads, you know, on the screen. Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't, because Twitter is a private company. If you want to see more about how the advertising works, business.twitter.com details both for big brands and small businesses how it works. Did you have a question at YouTube?
Thank you.
Is there a way we can analyze our followers, their profiles, and who they are? I mean, I know you can go and look at them one by one, but you know what age they are, what's their gender.
Well, remember, Twitter's not asking for that information from you, so we don't have a way to analyze that, and neither do you. I mean, we don't ask for that for people to sign up for an account. It's really, I believe, just an email address, maybe an alternate one if your email address goes away, and then whatever name you want. So we don't have that demographic information.
Just a quick another one, if I may. How can you become a better Twitter user? Like, is there, you know, or how can you get sort of, I mean, is it just you just figure it out, or?
I think, I mean, there are lots of articles out there that are tips and guides that have good advice, I think. I think for me, I mean, I'm still learning along the way. You know, for me as a writer, it's fascinating to see what little clever thing can I say that people seem to like. And then other times it's like, nobody picked that up or retweeted it, oh well, you know. But I've learned sort of, there's a lot of funny, quirky things I like that I'll share, and then if that sensibility hits other people, then they'll pass it along too. And I probably could, you know, analyze it closely. I haven't really. It's just you begin to get into a rhythm that is comfortable for you, basically. And people will say, it's very self-rewarding. You know, people will say, "Oh, I saw that tweet. That was really funny," or "Oh, thanks to you, I read about, you know, this thing I didn't know about before." And oh, you know, people will just say to me now, "Oh, I really like your tweets." Now, I don't ask them, well, which ones? You know, believe me, I take it as a compliment, and I think, well, I must be on the right track, but I don't know the details of it. Yeah. You had a question.
Hi, thank you for explaining Twitter so greatly in detail. So I learned that it's a community tool, it's a sourcing tool, it's real time. And that makes me, I just saw this film which you've probably seen too, from IYY, which is based on a Twitter, it's a political film from an artist from China.
Oh yes, I'm
aware of
Yes,
it.
yes.
And then I'm thinking about the Arab Spring also, about politics.
Yes.
And so could one say that Twitter is, as it's in real time, it's community based, or crowdsourcing based, is a good medium or from all the different social media for movements, it's not you can't shape a movement, but
no, that's right.
For followers which build up a movement. Could one say that?
I think the way we've come to understand this, and Facebook may have a similar response to this kind of thing, is these things don't make the unrest, right? I mean, none of these are all platforms and technology tools. Unrest, civil, strife, democratic protests. I mean, all these have existed for centuries. So what makes the difference, I think, for some of these is the fact that you can share globally and pretty instantaneously. And in the case of Twitter, with a simple device, it could be a feature phone, could be SMS. So that is the new thing, is that there's an audience for that. The whole world is watching, that old phrase. So that's the new dimension to it, that word spreads very quickly. You can see pictures and video, also because of other, technologies have made that very easy to upload and share. So it's like there's more tools that are more immediate than I think was the case before, but they're not the things causing the protest. Yeah.
I have two little technical questions. The information that I post on Twitter will be able to be searched in Google and be in Twitter sort of like forever. I used to have it in going to my Facebook feed, and then I took that out because I was wondering, like, who can use the information that I post and how can they use it? I am always also concerned when an app of a newspaper or something, that they say, if you agree to this app, we can post things on Twitter for you. And then I say, no, I won't put that app. But I wanted to know if you can tell me the different levels of sort of allowing the information that you post to be used.
So there's a couple questions wrapped in there. If you create a public account on Twitter that is not protected, not locked by you, then that information is publicly seen, and you've agreed to that in the terms of service when you sign up, if that's what you want to do. However, the information belongs to you. It's your account. So it doesn't mean, what it means is we require, we ask, a broadcaster or a publisher, this is the way you should show a tweet so that it's not altered. It's displayed to give full credit to the person, that sort of thing. If you wanted to delete a tweet, then you deleting it is the end of that. I mean, it's yours to delete. Now, if somebody's already published it elsewhere, that's a different problem to chase down. But it's your information. You have the right to it. And when we have to, a few months ago, we published on our blog a new feature we were able to make possible, which is when a legal authority comes to us to subpoena tweets, once we've determined that it's a valid legal request, and we have reached out to the user to inform them this is happening, and for whatever reason, there's not a dispute about that. If we are obligated to, we'll remove the tweet, but we'll say, this tweet was removed. Go to chillingeffects.org to read more about, what the request was about. So that's about as transparent as you can get under that kind of circumstance. That doesn't happen very often, as you can imagine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know how many political, say, heads of state are actually tweeting, and what role Twitter plays in international affairs, diplomacy world?
Well, I only know from anecdotal experience. I mean, heads of state, governments, ministries, lots of different organizations and agencies have Twitter accounts. In the U.S., the president does, the vast majority of the federal politicians do. So what role it plays, I mean, again, they use them for different things, mostly to get their messages, their pro messages out, whatever they are. In terms of the one example I can think of that's a very interesting one, I think it was in Tahrir Square when the protests were building up there in January last year. I believe the US State Department, Twitter had scheduled a technical maintenance, right, so that we'll go offline for a little bit to sort of clean up the system, we'll be back. And the State Department got in touch with Twitter, the company, and said, please don't have that maintenance right now, because then people won't have a way to tweet out. And so they postponed, it was just a scheduled thing, they postponed it. There was no interruption of service. So in that sense, I mean, again, that's not an everyday occurrence, but that's an interesting role that Twitter has come to play in that kind of situation. I think we're out of questions and probably out of time. I don't know, I've lost track. But thank you all for coming and asking questions and listening to the slides, and I hope I clarified at least some things about Twitter. I encourage you to play around with it and watch and see what other people do and have fun with it. Thanks.